$1 million in a single night, a jersey, retired in a strip club, and 3 different teams in just 2 years. This is the untold truth about James Harden, the superstar whose off-court decisions might have cost him basketball immortality. Before he was the beard, before the controversy and the headlines, James Harden was just a kid from Lakewood, California, with a dream and a natural gift for the game. At Artesia High School, he showed the first glimpses of what would become his signature style, a unique combination of craftiness and skill that set him apart from his peers. Leading his team to consecutive state championships wasn't just about scoring, it was about how he scored, showing an early mastery of the game's nuances that would later define his NBA career. The transformation continued at Arizona State, where Harden didn't just play, he dominated. In a conference that had often overlooked the Sun Devils, he turned them into must-watch basketball. His sophomore season statistics, 20.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game, only tell part of the story. What the numbers don't show is how he was already developing the offensive arsenal that would make him nearly unguardable in the NBA. The ability to change pace, the deceptive first step, and the knack for drawing contact. But it wasn't just his play that was evolving. During these formative years, we saw the first signs of what would become both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness, an unshakable confidence in his abilities that bordered on stubbornness. While this self-belief would help him reach incredible heights, it would also play a crucial role in the controversies that would later define his career. But as he prepared for his next chapter, few could have imagined how his destination would reshape both his legacy and the NBA itself. The Oklahoma City Thunder of 2009 was a team on the brink of something special. With Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook already in place, drafting James Harden 3rd overall seemed like the final piece of a championship puzzle. What followed was a masterclass in player development, as Harden embraced a 6th-man role that would have bruised many young players' egos. The numbers during his Thunder years tell a story of steady progression, from 9.9 points per game as a rookie to 16.8 points in his final season, culminating in the 6th Man of the Year award in 2012. But more impressive was how he managed to impact games without dominating the ball, something that would become increasingly rare as his career progressed. The 2012 finals run should have been the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, it marked the end of what might have been the NBA's greatest what-if story. When contract negotiations stalled over a difference of roughly $4.5 million per year, we saw the first clear indication of Harden's priorities. Rather than accept slightly less than the max to keep together a team that had just reached the finals, he chose to bet on himself, a decision that would alter the course of NBA history. On October 27, 2012, the day James Harden arrived in Houston, it marked the beginning of both his ascension and his transformation. No longer content with being a 6th man, Harden exploded onto the scene with a statement game: 37 points, 12 assists, 6 rebounds, 4 steals. It wasn't just the number, it was a declaration that the apprentice was ready to become the master. What followed was one of the most remarkable individual runs in NBA history. Under coach Mike D'Antoni's system, Harden's game evolved into something basketball had never seen before. His signature step-back three became virtually unguardable. His ability to draw fouls transformed from a skill into an art form. The numbers during his peak years were staggering: 36.1 points per game in 2018-19, 3 scoring titles, an MVP award in 2018, and a streak of over 30 consecutive games scoring 30-plus points. But with this evolution came the signs of what would become recurring issues. Harden's style, while historically productive, was increasingly criticized as unwatchable. His foul-drawing tactics, while effective, were seen by many as manipulating the spirit of the game. More concerning was his tendency to dominate the ball. Possessions could last 20 seconds with Harden dribbling while teammates stood watching. But as Harden's star continued to rise in Houston, so did the whispers about what was happening away from the bright lights. $1 million night at a strip club that resulted in his jersey being retired at the establishment, the late-night parties before playoff games, the seemingly casual approach to conditioning. While NBA superstars have long lived extravagant lifestyles, Harden seemed to directly impact his performance when it mattered most. The pattern became impossible to ignore. In crucial playoff moments when legends cement their legacy, Harden often appeared exhausted or disengaged. The 2017 elimination game against the Spurs, where he scored just 10 points and fouled out with 3 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. The 2015 playoff game against the Warriors, where he set a playoff record with 13 turnovers. These weren't just bad games, they were spectacular collapses that that raised serious questions about his preparation and priorities. The controversy extended beyond his lifestyle. His relationships with teammates became increasingly strained. The partnership with Dwight Howard dissolved amid reports of ego clashes and chemistry issues. Chris Paul, who was brought in to help shoulder the leadership burden, reportedly grew frustrated with Harden's approach to the game. Even his coaches weren't immune. Kevin McHale's firing was later attributed to tensions with his star player. With his Houston legacy tarnished and his reputation at a crossroads, Harden would seek redemption in what seemed like the perfect situation. January of 2021 marked what should have been the beginning of an NBA dynasty. When James Harden forced his way to Brooklyn, joining forces with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, the basketball world held its collective breath. On paper, it was perhaps the most offensively talented trio ever assembled. 3 future Hall of Famers, each capable of taking over games single-handedly. The reality, however, would prove far more complicated and ultimately disappointing. The numbers during Harden's Brooklyn tenure tell only part of the story: 23.4 points, 10.5 assists, and 8.2 rebounds per game. What they don't show is the growing frustration as the Big Three managed to play just 16 games together. With Irving's prolonged absences due to his vaccination status and Durant's injuries, Harden found himself in a familiar position, carrying an offensive load he hadn't signed up for. But rather than embrace the challenge, we witnessed what was becoming a familiar pattern. The body language became increasingly negative. The effort on defense, never his strong suit anyway, became almost non-existent. In games against weaker opponents, Harden appeared disengaged, sometimes seemingly just going through the motions. The situation reached its breaking point when he posted a mysterious social media message about honesty, followed by one of the most passive-aggressive performances in NBA history against the Sacramento Kings, where he scored just 4 points in 37 minutes. What made the Brooklyn situation particularly telling was how it exposed Harden's inability to adapt. When things got difficult, instead of adjusting his game or working through the challenges, he looked for an exit. The same player who had forced his way out of Houston was now engineering another departure, this time after just 80 games in a Nets uniform. Harden found himself drawn to a familiar face in Philadelphia. But this time it was supposed to be different. Reuniting with Daryl Morey, the executive who had built those Houston teams around him, and pairing with Joel Embiid, arguably the most dominant center in the game, seemed like a perfect scenario for redemption. Early signs were promising. Harden led the league in assists in 2023, averaging 10.7 per game, and showed flashes of his old brilliance in the playoffs, including a 45-point masterpiece against Boston. Beneath the surface, familiar issues were brewing. Despite taking less money to help the team build a contender, a move that initially earned him praise, Harden's commitment would again be questioned. The 2023 offseason brought another trade demand, this time accompanied by a public outburst that would effectively burn his bridges in Philadelphia. The situation reached its apex when Harden, during a promotional tour in China, declared Daryl Morey is a liar and vowed never to play for an organization he was part of again. It wasn't just the words, it was the timing and the manner of delivery. Doing it in China, where the NBA had previously faced controversy, and doing it so publicly showed a level of calculated disruption that went beyond typical player management disputes. What made the Philadelphia chapter particularly disappointing was how it undermined what could have been a career rehabilitating partnership with Embiid. Their pick and roll chemistry had shown tremendous promise, and the Sixers had legitimate championship potential. Instead, we witnessed another relationship deteriorate, another opportunity squandered, and another messy exit that raised questions about Harden's ability to sustain any long-term basketball partnership. With bridges burned in Philadelphia, Harden's journey would lead him to Los Angeles, where the stakes couldn't be any higher. November 2023 marked the beginning of what many consider James Harden's last best chance at redemption. For the first time in years, Harden wasn't being asked to be the primary scorer or even the primary ball handler. The early returns have been intriguing. His scoring average has dropped to 16.6 points per game, the lowest since his Oklahoma City days, but his efficiency and decision-making have shown marked improvement. More importantly, we've seen glimpses of a different James Harden, one willing to play off the ball, make the extra pass, and contribute to a system rather than be the system. What makes this chapter particularly fascinating is how it forces us to confront the central question of Harden's career. Was his previous style of play a choice or necessity? The Clippers experiment suggests that he always had the capability to play a more balanced game, but perhaps lacked the willingness or the right environment to do so. The numbers tell an interesting story. Despite the reduced scoring, Harden's impact on the Clippers offense has been significant. The team's offensive rating with him on the court has improved, and his chemistry with Leonard and George has grown with each game. Perhaps most tellingly, his defensive effort, long a source of criticism, has shown noticeable improvement, suggesting that with less offensive burden, he can contribute more in other areas of the game. But questions still remain. Can this version of Harden sustain his newfound role when the pressure intensifies in the playoffs? Will he maintain his commitment to team basketball if the Clippers face adversity? The answers to these questions could well determine not just the success of his latest experiment, but the final chapter of Harden's legacy. But hey, that's just my take. We want to hear from you. Has James Harden's career been misunderstood, or did he squander his chances at greatness? Leave us a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're always breaking down the biggest stories and trends in the NBA, and you won't want to miss our future videos. And hey, while you're at it, smash that bell icon too. That way you'll be notified as soon as we drop new content, and trust me, with how quickly things change in the NBA, you'll want to stay up to date. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.